Welcome to On the Other Hand, and a special welcome to Ilyana Tallman and any other new viewers. So sometimes YouTube recommends new channels to me, and I watch a video and get excited about what this new channel might contain. Such a thing happened to me when I watched this video entitled How Dogma Pollutes Discourse by TheraminTrees, and links to everything will be in the description below. You might know that I particularly don't like strawman arguments, so I was very impressed with this section of the video.
A common way in which discourse gets polluted is through the use of straw men. Here, instead of addressing what an opponent actually says, a misrepresentation of the opponent's position is constructed that's easier to attack. One form of misrepresentation is exaggeration. If our opponent makes a moderate statement of fact that includes a careful qualification, and we ignore that qualification and attribute our opponent with a far more extreme view than they've actually expressed, we haven't addressed what's been said in any valid way. One reason that strawman exaggerations repeatedly occur in discussions about religion and politics is that ideological discourse attracts extreme, polarized opinions. Adherents of dogmatic ideologies frequently exhibit black and white thinking, collapsing divergent aspects of humanity into either-or dichotomies. These simplistic divisions dismiss important nuance, complexity, and ambiguity. So, as careful as we might be to make moderate, reasonable statements to support a line of valid argument, the strawman exaggerator attempts to push us into a black and white position, not merely making uncharitable interpretations of what we say, but completely mischaracterizing us.
So after such a good video on how discourses can fail, I was reminded of my own divisive definition series and excitedly looked into what other videos TheraminTrees had. And of course, I found out that this guy is an evangelical atheist. In another video, he tells about how he was raised in religion, but his parents seemed to be closed off to honest questions about their faith. Then, when he and his brother denounced his family's faith, he talked about how brainwashed his parents were and how quickly they turned a cold shoulder to him. Now, I take his story with a grain of salt, as this is only TheraminTrees' side of the story, and he decided that he was an atheist while just entering his teens. No offense to teenagers, but religious people spend their lives continually learning more about their faith. So I have trouble when a young teenager decides they know enough of religion to reject it entirely. Now, to show my biases, I definitely believe in God and have for all my life, and I also was raised in a good environment where honest questions were okay. While I have seen some imperfect situations of others being raised in religion, I am also very confident that God's hand guides all those who believe in Him. The point is, a lot of TheraminTrees videos have titles like Recovering from Religion, How Religions Distort Love, The Abuse of Child Indoctrination, and Respecting Beliefs Why We Should Do No Such Thing. Now, I'm not saying religions can't be abusive and cult-like, but I do take issue that TheraminTrees seems to paint all religions as being abusive, led by frauds, and cults trying to indoctrinate people. So of course, I saw the video he put out about Joseph Smith, the founder of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, of which I am a member, and I wanted to respond and contrast this video with the first one I showed. So here's a clip from Debunking Prophets.
Mormonism was conceived in the 1820s by a young American called Joseph Smith, who claimed an angel called Moroni had told him about a book of golden plates buried in a nearby hill, along with two special stones called Urim and Thummim. Joseph enlisted a wealthy farmer called Martin Harris to participate in the bizarre process of translating the plates, which were claimed to be an extension of the Christian Bible. Joseph would put the stones in a hat and hold the hat to his face, blocking out the light. He claimed passages of text would then appear before his eyes, which he would dictate for Martin to transcribe. Joseph always kept the plates hidden. Sometimes a blanket or curtain would be hung between him and Martin. Magic stones were nothing new for Joseph. Before venturing into the prophet business, he tried his hand at money digging. Using exactly the same stone in a hat routine, he claimed he could detect buried treasure. In those times, buried treasure was often thought to be enchanted. Some believed that if forbidden treasure was unearthed, the spirits could make it sink down again out of reach. Money diggers could pretend to dig up treasure, then claim the treasure had been reclaimed by spirits, and still pocket their fee. Martin Harris's wife, Lucy, didn't believe the gold plate story. To appease her concerns, Martin asked Joseph if he could show her the 116 pages they'd so far produced. Joseph later told him that their God, Elohim, had denied his request. But Martin kept asking, and after his third request, Joseph said Elohim had granted permission to show the pages to his wife and a few relatives. Martin took the pages and showed Lucy and several others. Then, the pages were stolen. If the golden plate story had been true, losing the pages would have been a very minor setback. It wasn't as if they contained top-secret material. It was the New Christian Testament, supposedly a divine message intended for everyone. What did it matter if some thief or thieves got a sneak preview? The only real problem would be having to translate the golden plates all over again, repeating work already done. There'd certainly been no reason to panic. But if the story was false, and Joseph had made the whole thing up, losing the pages would be a catastrophe. And that was exactly how Joseph reacted. According to his mother, on hearing this news, Joseph wept and groaned and cried out repeatedly that all was lost. With no master template to work from, the lost pages couldn't be reproduced. If he tried to dictate them from memory, Martin Harris was bound to notice inconsistencies. In addition, the thief or thieves could produce the stolen pages at any time after the book was published and show the translations didn't match. After a period of reflection, Joseph announced that Elohim had instructed him not to go back and translate what he'd already translated. He said Elohim had told him that the thieves had altered the stolen pages, so that if Joseph tried to replace them, the thieves would use their false version to claim he'd contradicted himself. People would then turn against Joseph. He claimed Elohim just wanted him to carry on from where he'd left off. It was a story full of holes. Problem 1. There was no scenario in which it was in the thieves' interest to alter the stolen pages. If they believed Joseph had made the whole thing up, then they'd be expecting his second translation not to match their stolen copy. Altering their copy would be the last thing on their minds. Alternatively, if the thieves believed Joseph could produce another perfect copy, that meant they either believed his magical golden plate story, in which case they believed they were up against Elohim himself, or they believed Joseph had some other master version to refer to. If Joseph had a master copy, altering the stolen pages would be pointless and risky. Pointless because Joseph could reproduce endless copies of the 116 pages to prove he wasn't just making the text up as he went along. Risky because when the new pages were compared with the stolen pages, the portions the thieves had altered would come under special scrutiny, being the only parts that differed. Any sign of tampering would only strengthen Joseph's position. Altering the pages made no sense. Problem 2. An all-knowing Elohim would have known all along that the pages would be stolen, and that Joseph would ultimately not translate them again. The supposed authors of the golden plates were the prophet Mormon and his son, Moroni, who had visited Joseph in angelic form. So Elohim watched silently as the equivalent of 116 pages of English text was laboriously engraved in gold, all for nothing. Problem 3. The omnipotent Elohim is portrayed as strikingly impotent. He can arrange angelic visitations, reveal the secret whereabouts of magical golden plates, make text magically appear through a stone in a hat, but can't locate some bits of paper, or tell Joseph who stole them, or magically destroy them, any of which could remove the threat against Joseph and restore the value of Mormon and Moroni's hard work. Astounding how useless the gods suddenly become the moment any practical help's required.
So there are a lot of inaccuracies here, but I'd like to focus on a couple of what I feel like are direct strawman arguments and contradictions to TheraminTrees' earlier video. First, TheraminTrees mentions that during the translation process, quote, Joseph always kept the plates hidden. Sometimes a blanket or curtain would be hung between him and Martin. I'm not sure if this was said to back up the claim that this translation process was bizarre and magical, or if TheraminTrees is trying to imply that keeping them hidden means he didn't think he had them. If it's the latter, it's interesting that he mentions keeping the plates hidden, but not any of the witness testimonies of the plates. The next thing I have a problem with is that he mentions that Joseph participated in money digging with his seer stone, but then pivots to what people did in those times. If TheraminTrees wants to accuse Joseph Smith of being a fraud and a cheat, I wish he would make direct accusations instead of indirect character attacks. There are unknowns on this point of history, but there are also recorded testimonies of both Joseph's character and gifts, like in this record of a testimony during a session in court. Anyway, then TheraminTrees talks about how Joseph, being distraught at losing the 116 pages, is proof that his story is false. This to me is a direct contradiction to the first video I showed that said,
These simplistic divisions dismiss important nuance, complexity, and ambiguity. So, as careful as we might be to make moderate, reasonable statements to support a line of valid argument, the strawman exaggerator attempts to push us into a black and white position, not merely making uncharitable interpretations of what we say, but completely mischaracterizing us.
Speaking of nuances, if Joseph believed he had been called of God, it would stand to reason that Joseph would believe that his soul might be at stake for ignoring direct revelation from God. Yet, TheraminTrees seems to say that the only explanation for Joseph being distraught is that he was a fraud, and any other explanations are ignored. So TheraminTrees seems to operate under the assumption that there is no God, but when he does acknowledge the possibility, it's a very simplistic view of God. If one assumes there is a God and a devil, and that Joseph was acting at the direction of God, of course the thieves would be acting at the direction of the devil and would have an interest in altering the stolen pages. TheraminTrees' next point acts as if because the pages were lost, all the work that went into those pages was for nothing. I think this whole ordeal was one of the most important for Joseph personally, and I also think that learning to truly trust the Lord is worth any price. The final point TheraminTrees asserts is that because God didn't solve Joseph's problems for him, God is impotent and useless. First, I believe God did know this was all going to happen, and that's why the 116 pages were a retelling of the beginning section of the Book of Mormon. But also, I feel like this shows TheraminTrees' very simplistic view of God. God is not a gumball machine, nor is he a genie who grants wishes. God is our loving Heavenly Father, whose ways are higher than ours, and who wants our ultimate happiness. Just as an earthly parent wants their children to learn and grow for themselves, I firmly believe that, as Elder Renlund said, God is not interested in his children just becoming trained and obedient pets who will not chew on his slippers in the celestial living room. No, God wants his children to grow up spiritually and join him in the family business. God established a plan whereby we can become heirs in his kingdom, a covenant path that leads us to becoming like him, have the same kind of life he has, and live forever as families in his presence. So I definitely appreciate some of the things TheraminTrees has to say. I just wish his desire for unpolluted discourse extended to his own discussion of God and religion. Because as much as I know that horrible things can be done in the name of religion, I also know that living a Christ-centered life can provide immense amounts of peace, direction, and safety. As always, thanks, hope you enjoyed, and if you did, consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you'll get notified for new uploads.